In this video, I want to talk about a condition called Sinding-Larsen-Johansson syndrome, or SLJ. I want to explain what it is, who it typically affects, but ultimately what you need to work out in order to be getting rid of that, to get yourself or loved ones back onto the sport and exercise setting. So stay tuned to that content because I'm going to be diving through that now. If you are new to our channel, my name's John. I'm a sports injury therapist and I want to do simple things at this channel. Help you understand your body, get rid of pain and weakness, strive forward and hit your health and well-being goals. Now, Sinding-Larsen-Johansson syndrome, or for the benefits of my pronunciation throughout the rest of this video, I will call it SLJ, is a common condition that we see in our clinics. It typically affects youth athletes. So people between the ages of about 10 and 17 tend to be a little bit of the younger spectrum for girls, slightly older for boys, typically affecting probably 12 to 15-year-olds, but can certainly happen outside of it. It's a growth-related condition and it's very similar to a condition called Osgood-Schlatter disease that you might have come across, or I have lots and lots of videos on my channel all around Osgood-Schlatter disease. So what is happening here? Well, the reason it affects youth athletes is because they have an area, or all youths have an area below the kneecap, which is called a growth plate. Now, Osgood-Schlatter disease is when we tend to get a problem at the lower part of the growth plate. Sinding-Larsen-Johansson, in some ways, is an identical condition, but affecting things a little bit higher up. So if the pain is around the base of the kneecap and things. What is happening? Well, what is a growth plate? So a growth plate is an area of a bone that hasn't yet turned to bone. It's what we call cartilage, and then it allows for that growth to happen in the bone as the body grows. And then when it finishes growing, that goes through a process called ossification, and that becomes bone. And so if you're watching this video as an adult, we are all ossified and we have all finished growing, but for the youth athlete, or the youth person, sorry, they are still growing. So we have these growth plates. Now, why is it a problem then, this growth plate for youth athletes? Well, into this area here, which we call the tibial tuberosity, is our quadricep muscles. So our quadricep muscles are four big muscles on the front of the leg that all come down and attach into that area. So if somebody is using these quads a lot, running, jumping, kicking, they might be creating a lot of force through those muscles and a lot of force through that growth plate area. So typically with that force going through the area, that can cause a disturbance at the growth plate. So they might get pain and soreness on the underside of the knee. And as I say, very common in athletes, people doing the activities that I mentioned, and it will typically present with a lot of pain that perhaps even if it isn't there at the start of exercise, comes on with a vengeance as exercise continues. So what we need to do is some simple things. We need to manage the symptoms, but importantly, we need to understand the causes and make any changes to stretching and flexibility of the tissue and strengthening of the tissue that we can. And in this video, I want to give you a few simple tips that you can do. So firstly, managing the symptoms. We can do that. We know that it's an overuse condition. The more we're using something, the more we're pulling on this area, the more it's disturbing that area and causing inflammation. So we can use some anti-inflammatory means to settle those symptoms. So typically I recommend people using ice in that area below the knee for about 10 to 15 minutes a day, 2 to 3 times a day, to help to manage those symptoms. But you've heard me repeat the term help to manage those symptoms because that is all we're doing. We're not looking to correct it with this, we're just managing those symptoms. Importantly, we need to be correcting that. So, firstly, we can start with the direct culprits, if you like, our quadriceps muscles that come down and attach into that growth plate. So they're causing the force that is causing that soreness. So we can check out that flexibility. So again, what I would encourage youngsters to do who are suffering with this is to lie on their front. And what they want to do is pull their foot up towards the bottom. Start on the good side, the uninjured side, if there is one. Pull that foot in. Can they touch the bottom? Repeat it on the injured side. Do we get a restriction in that flexibility? Does it become sorer? Does it become difficult? If it does, then that's an indicator that we're tight through that area. And this becomes a really important stretch for them to do. If it's too sore for them to get into that position, we can do the stretch on their side where they can lift their hips a little bit at the start to make it easier in order to get into that stretching position. But that's showing us that the quadricep stretching is something really important for them to do. What we would also look to do is assess their hamstring flexibility. So this might be indirectly causing us a problem. The hamstrings living on the back of the leg, if they are getting tight, the quadriceps might be doing too much work and therefore putting force through that front of the knee. So we would get them to simply lay on their back and lift their leg up towards them, towards straight up. So they're looking to get 90 degrees of hip flexion, or to bring their foot directly above their body. Importantly, we must keep the left leg flat on the floor, and we must also, when I say left leg, sorry, that's if we're stretching the right hand side, and we must keep the leg nice and straight, not allowing that knee to bend, because that will take the hamstrings off stretch and give us a force reading. We should be able to get the leg to 90 degrees, but if we can't, if we fall short, then we know that we've got some tightness in that hamstring, and that could be a problem for us. So this is another stretch that they should be doing. Holding that stretch, that position where comfortable for 30 seconds. Repeating that daily, 2 or 3 times a day, and over about a week or two, they will start to see their range of motion improving. And we know then that we're taking some of the slack off the quads and less force going through the front of the knee. The other thing that we would always want to check is the stability around the knee, and in particular the glute control. Something the growing athlete can suffer with is a inhibition in the glutes, which causes the knees to be wobbly. So then when they're running around, some of these muscles are working harder than they need to stabilize the knee, and that's what's leading ourselves to pain. So how can we do that? Well, what we would typically look to do is an exercise like the squat, where what we're looking to do is, as they go through a squat, we're looking at the knee position. Do the knees remain nice and in a straight line, or do they start to drop in? Again, we would then repeat that exercise with a single leg squat, starting with the good side, moving on to the bad side as well. Can they keep the knee moving directly over the middle toe, or does it start to drop in a little bit and cave in a little bit? That's an indicator that we might be weak through those glutes. So therefore, what we want to do is some glute exercises. And again, I would typically recommend to start, we want to find some exercises that aren't going to put pressure on the knee, because we don't want to add to the symptoms. So an exercise like the clam, where we're laying on our side, bending both legs, keeping the feet together as we take one knee away from the other one. And that will start to work their glutes. And I would typically encourage children to do 3 sets of 6 repetitions on each side, starting with the good side, moving over to the bad side, to see the difference. Do we fatigue quicker? Does it bring on a weakness or a pain in the glutes? That's showing us that those glutes aren't strong. To make that exercise a little bit more difficult, we can take the legs out to the side and complete what I call a wiper exercise, where again, we're looking to take the leg away from the leg that's flat on the surface, keeping that leg nice and straight this time. And the important thing with this one is that we're slowly taking that leg back down towards the other leg. And here what we're trying to establish is the same things. Are the glutes fatiguing? Are we getting pain in those glutes? Is it a much harder workout on the injured side compared to the good side? Other indicators that we've got some glute stability work that's going to be beneficial for the knee pain that we're suffering with. So what I would say in summary is that there are things that we can be doing. We want to be managing the symptoms with the ice. We want to be checking out the flexibility. We want to be checking out the strengthening work or the overall stability. It is a condition that I would always recommend getting checked out by a medical professional, because the key here is understanding the cause. What one of those various factors could be contributing to our pain, amongst other things. But then once we understand that, we can really get to work on getting rid of this. We may need to take the time away from sport that is needed, but I don't believe this has to be a long period of time, because what I do see is people take a long time away from sport and don't make any of these corrections, and then just dive straight back into sport, and then are confused why the pain comes back. The problem is that we haven't corrected the cause. I always give the same analogy. I talk about this condition being a child being bullied in a playground. Now, we can take the child out of the playground, and what would happen? Well, the child would be able to settle down, and that would be fine. And it's the same thing by stopping sport. The knee will probably settle down. But as soon as we put the child back into the playground, or a child back onto the sporting field in the actual context, then what's going to happen? Well, the bullies are going to go back to work, and that's going to be a problem. So what we actually need to do is to find out what's the bullies. The glutes, the quad, the hamstrings, and we need to correct those so we can safely then return back into sport. But I hope that video has been helpful for you. It's a super common condition, and it is so frustrating for the young athletes that we work with. As I say, it often works with people playing a lot of sport. They love their sport and exercise, and they hate taking that time away. What we want to do is ease back the symptoms and then slowly drip feed back into sport and exercise while we're making the other corrections that we've highlighted in this video in order to allow for a successful rehabilitation back into sport. Has that been helpful for you? If it has, you can do me a favor and smash that like button. That's going to show others in the same position as you, and it's also going to show me that I should be making more types of video around these types of things. And if you haven't subscribed to our community, why not hit that subscribe button? Come and join the community where I can then be letting you know as soon as I drop another video how to help you on your health and well-being, sport and exercise goals journey. See you on that video.